Welcome to the Radical Rhythm Podcast. This has been created for those of us that love radical women who live perhaps by the rules, but also question and challenge the status quo. We want more from our lives, to enjoy our sexuality, to explore radical thought, and to celebrate women who have lived and continue to live unconventional lives. Hi, I'm Dr. Tony Baer, sexologist, educator, activist, and definitely a radical woman. Thank you for joining me as I share stories of women challenging the status quo and living life to the fullest. Join me as we unapologetically march to the beat of a different drummer together. So welcome to the Radical Rhythm Podcast. Today I am so excited that we have Karen with us from Philadelphia, my hometown. And I'd like Karen to introduce herself. I mean, I could go on and on. I received a few emails and Karen's bio could take up the whole half an hour program here. So Karen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm 77 years old. I started out in this world as a foster child. My mother got rid of me right from the hospital and sent me into foster care. And I was a foster child until age 18. And they brought me into the, to speak to the head of the agency. And she said, you know, I know you have a lot of dreams of opera and singing and directing operas, but it's just not going to be possible. And that's when I was 18 before I went off to college. And I did go to college, full paid scholarship, and I did graduate and did get a master's and did go to Italy to sing and did receive rave reviews and did create 16 world premiere Italian operas in Italy with artists from 75 different countries. So I'm pretty proud of, and I'm the mother of two wonderful sons, and we've had a really great life.
Wow. So are you saying that you dreamt of being an opera singer from a very, very young age?
Yes, I did. Mainly because I guess my voice was louder than everyone else's, not because I was trying to be loud, but it just was more resonant than other children in my elementary school.
So was opera popular when you were young? I mean, I didn't hear any opera myself until I was in my teens and 20s.
Well, mainly I started out playing the piano when I was 4 and dancing and singing. And eventually, by the time I was 12 years old, I was brought to Settlement Music School here. We have this amazing public music school program throughout the city of Philadelphia. And the director wanted this voice teacher to train me as an opera singer, and he said he wouldn't, but she threatened to fire him, so he accepted me. And and I had taken kind of lessons with the neighborhood opera singer before that. So it was just something that I sort of fell into, I guess.
Oh, that's wonderful. Growing up in Philadelphia, in such a large city, many children have opportunities that children in the country or the suburbs wouldn't necessarily have. I mean, opera is such a specialized part of music that it's available to people who live in the city. So in that way, you're very, very fortunate. And was this during the 1950s, 1940s? When?
Yeah, well, I was born in 44, so it was in the 50s. But when you, even to our projects in Italy, our world premieres, we bring children and we don't have them singing like, quote, opera singers. Like we have them singing sweetly and naturally. And that's really basically, even though my voice was more resonant. I wasn't trying to be an opera singer per se. I was just developing as a musician and as an artist.
So, looking back upon your career, was most of your career as a singer, as a pianist, as a composer, as a director, um, kind of equal pieces? What part of music, and you're also, and we haven't talked about this yet, you're also an owner of a music club in Philadelphia. So you're also a music entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So when you look at your life and you look back, what did you spend most of your life doing in music?
Well, I guess I started teaching neighborhood kids when I was about 16, but I was always organizing like little theatrical events in my neighborhood. So, and it's interesting because I met my father when I was 52 years old for the first time. And it turns out his mother had been an opera singer. And I learned that she was always trying to teach people singing. So I guess teaching singing, which I've done since I was 16 years old, directing and teaching are a large part of my life. And then, of course, singing has also been a large part, but probably teaching and directing as a vocal coach and a director.
Great. So most of my life I've been a musician, and then I was a manager and musician, and then I was a booking agent, then I was a producer, and I produce events. I mean, it just seems to grow and you share, but I've never gone on a worldwide stage, Karen, and I've never tried to change the world. And I invited you on this program here because I believe you are a radical woman. You think outside the box. It isn't that you're just singing some opera or producing a show. You indeed are changing the lives of the young people that you're working with and affecting ripples into the world uh, for the benefit of world peace. Now, where do we start in that story? Again, let's talk about what you're doing right now, and then we'll work backwards.
All right, so right now we're about to create the most diverse opera production in history. We will have 35 plus countries represented in our performance. It will be a virtual production coming out of the Institute for Italian Culture website in New York. They have a new website, and the opera is going to be dedicated to Dante Alighieri, probably the most famous, or certainly one of the most famous Italian poets in history. And this year happens to be the 700th anniversary of Dante's death. And so we're preparing this opera with, and another interesting aspect is that the opera, the performers in the opera, the singers and the instrumentalists and the music will be in flow.
What does that mean?
That means in a state of higher consciousness. So I'm not sure if you know about the ideas for flow, but certainly they're prevalent in the athletic community. High performance athletes who perform in, they're able to do extraordinary actions because they are able to be in this state, which is a right brain dominant state. So it involves the entire brain, the whole brain, but it's right brain dominant. And it's a state in which we are able to be in harmony with nature. We're more compassionate. We're more loving. We are more relaxed. We're more peace oriented. And so I'm very interested in this state. In 1973, I met an amazing inventor and composer who had invented a machine which he called the Adagio machine. And this machine is able to demonstrate the slow, continuous movement underlying a piece of music that is in flow. It's also able to demonstrate if the piece of music is not in flow. And so because we're in the COVID crisis, and since we're not able to go to Italy this year for the second year, we decided to create an opera in which the audience would have the opportunity to enter this higher state of consciousness known as flow.
That is amazing. Absolutely amazing. And
well,
when is this happening? Like, can we tune into it on, and yes, I'll put the link underneath this broadcast.
Okay, it's going to be broadcast worldwide in all the countries who are participating. And it will be on the new website of the Institute for Italian Culture in New York, in the Dante Room. And September 15th is the target date. That is the actual death of Dante, the date for his death.
Wow, and this is not the first time that you've been on the cutting edge of opera and social change. You have also written a cantata. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because that also is absolutely amazing.
Well, I became interested in bringing young girls, especially young girls, to Italy to perform in our operas. And in addition to that experience, I thought it would be wonderful to create cantatas celebrating the life and works of the great Hildegard von Bingen. And so I wrote an original libretto, which is the text. And then I asked my friend, the great Mariano Garrao, who is a Sardinian composer, to set the text to music. Maria Luisa Mayo translated my text into Italian, and Mariano set it to music. And we also included original works of Hildegard in these cantatas, which were performed as a part of the Assisi Suono Sacro Festival in Assisi, in various locations there, including the cathedral and also the basilica where St. Francis is buried, the basilica over which they built his tomb, over which they built the basilica.
So Hildegard was quite the radical woman in her time.
Yes.
Can you tell our audience a little bit about Hildegard? And she seems to be the inspiration to your writing.
Yes, in fact, you just say her name and I get goosebumps. I just feel like, especially for young girls and for women, for all of us, there's such an inspiration in her life. She was, of course, a nun, but she was also a naturopathic person. She was an artist, she painted, she was a composer, and she was a bold, outspoken female for justice and love and compassion in our world. She actually spoke out to popes, to bishops, and she was not afraid of the consequences.
And so, this is during medieval times.
Yes, yes. And so she is someone that I would highly recommend all of your female listeners and your male listeners to discover, because we need role models of strong, powerful, bold women, as you know. and as you've dedicated your life to sharing their stories. And Hildegard is an extraordinary, extraordinary person.
Yeah, after we talked, I've been reading and reading and reading because her life is spectacular, and she had such a long life for someone of her time period as well. So there's a lot of
Yes.
accomplishments in one lifetime. And speaking of lifetimes, you have had almost so many lives in one person's lifetime. Um, Tell us a little bit about the fire and being a rock and roll club owner in Philadelphia.
Well, it started out in 1999. In 1988, my husband had felt that he wanted to leave his job in truck driving and wanted to be able to spend more time with his sons, our sons. And so we purchased together a tavern, and we decided to call it the Philadelphia Bar and Grill. And if you look at Tom Hanks' movie on Philadelphia, you see the cameras pan up to our sign that says the Philadelphia Bar and Grill at the very beginning of the film. Unfortunately, in 1999, my husband went into a coma, and I was left having to run our establishment, and I knew nothing about running a bar. I had cooked here, but I had not ever been behind the bar. It was a shot and beer kind of place. My husband sort of imagined like a saloon where guys just hung out and talked, and there weren't women, and there wasn't music, and there wasn't even a jukebox. But since I knew about music and we had a pool room, I decided with great trepidation to take out one of the pool tables and put in a tiny little stage. And I brought some of my singing students there who were not opera singers. They were singer-songwriters, or they were playing in rock bands. Eventually, I met somebody else who decided that he wanted to run our music venue and bar. And I continued to take care of my husband at home. And then my husband died in 2000 after a year and a half in this vegetative coma in our home, during which time I learned so much about communication and was really transformed in terms of what I wanted to share with the world, as far as how we can communicate powerfully beyond language, beyond spoken language. And so then that's when I decided after my husband died, I felt I had to return to Italy for healing. And my Italian teacher from Siena brought me to this beautiful town high up in the hills of Umbria, where her family had a home, and she and her husband were restoring it. It was a medieval home there. And the town had just finished a 40-year project to renovate their little opera house. And it had just that very, very same time been finished. And so the mayor asked the head of culture to bring me into the theater. I went into the theater, I stood on the stage and sang a high C, and I said, I'm going to bring artists here from all over the world to create world premiere Italian operas. And this is going to be a new renaissance in operatic art. And so that's what I did.
Wow. Wow. So again, thinking outside the box and making a change for a whole community in Italy, and a change for folks from all around the world to find this beautiful place on this beautiful mountain in the middle of Italy.
Yes. Yes, it's situated so perfectly because it's not too high and it's not too low. And it's, like you say, at the top of a mountain. And they have this beautiful small opera house. And we worked there on stage, creating a world premiere in only 1 month. Nobody else in the world creates a new opera in 1 month with staging, costumes, uh, and everybody, of course, is singing in Italian, which is nobody's native language. And it's a miraculous location. It's very healing, and the people there retain Italianità, meaning they are still Italian. They love their town, they love their families, they love each other. It's not loaded with tourist attraction shops like you find, unfortunately, in Assisi and Rome and Florence. And it's just absolutely breathtaking to be there.
Wow. Wow.
So
From the bar room in Philly to the opera house in Italy. Right?
It's true. Yes, yes.
So as a former rock musician, I've played in some of the dirtiest, seediest places probably in the United States. And in Philadelphia, there is such a vibrant music scene where I have found that people are all helping each other out, getting booked in different places, getting some notoriety. But being a female musician, there were some hurdles. Being a female bar owner and a female owner of a music club, what kind of obstacles have you faced?
Well, I guess I have to say that now things are very different. In 2021, I really feel that this particular year, with COVID and the Black Lives Matter movement, which is so important, which is really, I feel, positively affected female lives matter. I know it's Black Lives Matter. I'm not trying to minimize that at all, but there seems to be a real appreciation coming. And I'm proud to say, when I say I'm the only female music venue owner in Philadelphia, people seem to listen. And and other females seem to want to come here and work with me, create different events with me, attend bar with me. We have a number of female sound engineers. And of course, we love having female fronted or all female bands. We just love that. And we try to support females in every way we possibly can. So I feel it's much different now than, but still, there are moments when I'm that older white-haired lady that seems kind of weird to be in a rock venue. And yeah.
So, that was what I was going to ask next. We had shared a story of getting older, both of us, and that sometimes there are some folks that we interact with that respect us being older. But from my experience, when you're older in the United States, you're dispendable, especially an older woman. I have not found that in Italy. I have not found that in other places. Can you talk a little bit about being an elder in different communities and the receptiveness of different individuals towards you, being a very wise woman?
Well, thank you. I think it's been difficult for certain males who worked here when I came back, because we owned the venue all of these years since 1988 and when I started it in 1999. But there were these over a decade when someone else was running, managing everything, and I was not involved directly. So it did make it extremely hard when I first returned here as the active manager and with my white hair and my not knowing as much as I would have liked to have known about rock music, because I had been focusing on creating the operas in Italy all those years. So, and now, of course, my son and I, my younger son and I are booking and have been booking bands here. And I'm listening to heavy metal performers and deciding whether, and punk and hip hop and psychedelic rock. And yeah, there's, I think had I been here all of those years, perhaps it would have been different. But since I hadn't, I really have to prove myself. And even in the opera world, as a director, being a female, there are female directors and there's some very successful ones. But by and large, if I'm on a panel of operatic producers and directors listening to opera singers in a competition, I am the only female, or I'm only one of 2 females out of 12. That's just the way it is. So I'm just hoping that you and I and other women are forging the way for our sisters to be like Hildegard, to be strong, to be opinionated, to be proud, to have courage, to stand up for what's right, and to not be ashamed to say an opinion that might be more sensitive or more caring just because we are females. There's definitely so much prejudice. It's just, you know, in certain fields that are male dominated. And so I'm looking forward to having other female venue owners in Philadelphia. And even across the United States, there are not that many. There are others, but not that many. And we, as women, we have so much insight, compassion, understanding, intuition, knowing, feeling that we can bring to our fields, no matter what the field is. And we have to just believe in ourselves and have the courage to take bold steps. In fact, I was just telling someone today about an opera I directed in Italy. It was a world premiere. And I did not read the text. So I'm directing an opera and I'm not reading the text, which is absolutely wrong in most cases. But I listened to the music, and that is how I directed the opera. And so ideas would come into my mind as I was listening to the music. And also, as you know, all of my artists self-organize themselves on the stage. They're given permission to do that. And in addition to that, I listened to the music, and that inspired all of the direction that came to me from this part inside my mind, which I call azzaio, and I've written an opera about it, the creative part, the imagination, the seat of the imagination in each and every one of us. And obviously the composer was inspired by the words. So I didn't have to like recreate the actions that the words were saying. I created what the music was saying. And as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the most beautiful operas I ever created. And the imagery is just unbelievable. And it was about Camille Claudel, the great female artist, sculptor. who was the beloved of Rodin, and who faced
Karen,
so
there's
much.
just so much. I mean, there's so this is such good stuff. What I want more than anything is to hang out with you and let that creative flow just happen, and maybe some of it will land in my brain. It's just we could go on and on and on, and I think your message that you just gave to women, not that we need permission, but it's so nice to hear, to use your intuition, use the gifts that you have, and you can change the world. And you are
Absolutely.
absolutely an example of that.
Well, thank you so much, Tony.
I am
Really.
so thankful that you could come in and spend some time with us. Would you come back another time and we could do this
Definitely.
again?
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Karen. I look forward to talking to you again. Thank you for listening to the Radical Rhythm podcast today. It has truly been my pleasure to invite guests and talk to you about my passion, the joy in our sexuality, and radical women who march to the beat of a different drum. If you'd like to work with me, Dr. Tony Baer, I have a community where I give seminars every month. I also have a coaching program, both group and individual, and also a course, a self-directed course, because it's all about experiencing the joy life has to offer. I'd love to work with you. Check out my link below, www.tonybaeredd.com. See you next week, and don't let anyone dim your shine.